on Tuesday evening, 22nd of December, and I wish everybody happy Christmas. Hope you're all well. This is Saad here in Bromley in southeast London, and Gregory, I want to check you're there with us. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here in Brussels.
Welcome to the show. The weather here in London today, it's been mild, overcast, not really very cold. How is it in Brussels?
Oh, just the same.
Okay, good. Welcome. Dear listeners, this is the spiritual discussion program. And again, I wish you all happy Christmas. It's Christmas Day coming up in a few days. And we'll be talking about that in this show tonight. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And we have a new topic every week. So the topic for tonight is in line with the season of the time now. And the topic is celebrating Christmas. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly, All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. Dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we are discussing tonight is celebrating Christmas. Obviously, it's that time of the year, and so I invite you to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. So, Gregory, as I mentioned, the topic tonight is celebrating Christmas, and this year is a very unusual year with so many things happening. But before we go into that, I just thought let's try and look at Christmas itself. And I looked as usual in the dictionary, and we say Christmas is a festival. So I looked up what is festival, and it says there a day or period of celebration, typically for religious reasons. The other definition is not appropriate because it's not at all connected with Christmas. So I'm not going. It was about playing concerts, which you say musical concerts and things. They call them festivals, and there are other type of festivals as well. So the definition that I'm going to use from the dictionary here is a day or period of celebration, typically for religious reasons. So Gregory, is that suitable for this Christmas celebration?
It is not suitable because of the mention of for religious reasons. When you have someone celebrating his birthday, even as a child, no religion is attached to it. So the problem now is these being attached to religious reasons. Once that is removed from it, then one may talk of genuine celebration.
Thank you for pointing that out, actually, because yes, there are even people who don't believe in Christmas as such. They still celebrate in their own way. So the word is really a celebration. So so that is the more let's say relevant word in this definition. So okay, thank you for that, clarifying that it doesn't have to be religious connotation in it. So yeah, thank you for bringing that out. Now the next what I looked up is the word Christmas itself, and there I found it says a feast of the nativity, yes, which is the annual festival of commemorating the birth of Jesus Christ. And this is not in a dictionary, it was in Wikipedia actually, but anyway, I'll just continue to read it. So this is Christmas, the festivity of nativity, I can't say it right anymore, Feast of Nativity, which is an annual festival commemorating the birth of Jesus Christ, observed primarily on December 25th as a religious or cultural celebration among billions of people around the world. Again, we have already pointed out it's not religious. Is it a cultural celebration, Gregory? Can we check that as well? Is it a cultural celebration?
Well, for many who view it through their own eyes, they consider it cultural. But for some who view it from a different point of view, because of the personality, because of what he brought, then it's not tied to specific cultures. It's something which is universal, which applies to every person.
Right. So, okay. I mean, really, I mean, if we all know what is obvious, what it is meant to be is the birth of Christ. That's what the beginning of this definition is, and that's how it's called, Christmas, Christ. Well, I looked up what is mass or mass, and it talks in this Hebrew. It says anointed Messiah, basically mass being well, it's related to Messiah at least in Hebrew, and there it says anointed. So, but I think that may not be, let's say, completely sort of complete definition there. So what I found, Gregory, just to say this, when I was doing this research, I was finding things have been evolving over time. You know, even actually, I realized that they didn't really know when Jesus was born, so they were not even celebrating that birth. Then at some point, it was, let's say, decided that they want to recognize it and celebrate this birth. It even seems in this Wikipedia research I found almost 300 years later that this was introduced somehow. And then they also decided that they're going to use the winter solstice in the Roman calendar as the date for Jesus's birth. So it's like things have evolved rather than really known. Um, so what I want to ask there is, I think I'll straight away ask Gregory, should we be celebrating Christ's birthday?
The basic purpose of celebration basically is that of gladness, that of joy. If somebody sends you a gift, that gift is such that when you receive the gift, you express joy. You express joy not only within yourself, but also with neighbors. Those neighbors may be your immediate family, could be families around you, could be those you don't really know, but you express joy. And this joy, depending on the personality, is expressed as celebration. But the key thing here is that there is something which is a gift, which gift could be to illuminate many a concept and show how things should be. Therefore, it's only right to celebrate or to look back and say, oh, this is what this celebration implies, that you acknowledge this gift by following the principles which this gift has put forward.
Thank you for that. And I'm just wondering there, how do we celebrate? Because again, as I say, in history, in this research, I found things have evolved and evolved over thousands of years. And let's say, okay, I will go to the time, let's say, of today. Let's focus on today. Let's say, the way it is mostly celebrated, because everybody is different. In different countries, they celebrate differently, because it is almost an international holiday, even if they're not a Christian country, so-called Christian country. They still have Christmas Day holidays in these sort of places. And so I will say, overall, Gregory, the way they celebrate, let's say, majority of the people, is family get together and a feast. So is that, let's say, really representing Christmas, or more of a social sort of event?
First, one must understand what Christmas is. That event is a purely spiritual event. And only those who are able to grasp the spiritual significance through one's intuition or through their intuition, only those can be said to have celebrated Christmas in the right form. However, when people do celebration and they have the right perspective, then they can express themselves in very many ways. How they go about it is peculiar to the people. There are some who want to be alone, to go into the forest, don't want any distraction. There are some who, in expressing their joys, express it in conjunction with other people. There are some who, depending on their maturity, will decide, okay, I only want few people around me, or some want to go to and start dancing. How they express their joys is peculiar to them. If this event of Christmas is to be celebrated, albeit intuitively, that is a spiritual celebration, the forms it takes varies from person to person. But the key thing is a spiritual celebration for a gift which has been granted to you to provide a map on how one should proceed in one's living to be able to arrive at a finer or a better conclusion.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, you brought out something, let's say, I will say new up to this point. So, which is to recognize it as a spiritual event. So, which probably most people in the world are not recognizing it like that. So, just to be clear, Gregory, you said it's not, early on you said it's not a religious celebration, but a spiritual one. Is it okay to call it a spiritual celebration? Before I carry on.
One may call it a spiritual celebration because it was first and foremost a spiritual event which manifested physically.
Thank you for that. So just, because earlier on you said it's not a religious celebration, but it is a spiritual. Now we've confirmed that. So what is the difference between the spiritual and the religious celebration?
That which is of spirit expresses itself through one's intuition. That which is of religion is an agreed practice, which may or may not have any intuition attached to it.
Right. So that's very, how can I say, clearly point distinct what you've said there. So, okay. Right. So let's look at the spiritual significance then of Christ's birth. And you also mentioned, you said it's universal. So, and many Christians might think, oh, well, in theory, they would agree it should be universal, but foremost for those who recognize Christ, which are supposed to be Christians. So they would think of it like that. So just to be clear, Gregory, so this spiritual celebration, is that meant for the believers of Christ, or let's say whole humanity?
Strictly speaking, is for all who use their intuition to, who open up in their intuition to recognize what Christ brought. To recognize what he has brought means to be able to use what he brought for their own personal, spiritual benefit. It
Right.
doesn't mean that particular personality is, in quotes, called a Christian. It could be any so-called religion. It may not even have any religion at all.
Thank you for that. So I think what you're saying is what you're pointing to is something, let's say, most people wouldn't think like that, that's what the birth of Christ is about. So, we've already said at the beginning, this is not a religious celebration or event that we are looking at. It's actually a spiritual event. So I think I want to explore that more, because that might be some news for people. They didn't think about it, would not have seen it like that before. So, can you say more, Gregory, about the significance of this birth of Christ? What was his? You say he came as a gift. Can you say more? What is that about?
Well, from the hymns, from the songs, when it was said that man may continue to live or man may live forever, one can, to some extent, perceive or intuitively perceive what it's all about. One thing must be very clear. When one wants to recognize the gift, one must look into what he himself has exhibited. And one of the key things which we have, which cannot be denied by anyone, is the expressions of the Lord's Prayer. And in that expression, if examined thoroughly and in the right way, that will give us the wealth of experiences or the states of the human spirit that dares to say it, for it encapsulates all that the human spirit needs for its continuous existence. So the wealth that he brought is immeasurable. This wealth is independent of the temporal enjoyment that one has in one, say, in a physical way, or what you have on a day-to-day basis when you have eaten or not eaten. This is spiritual wealth.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, we are building and building in our discussion tonight about celebrating Christmas. And so our concepts are getting, let's say, deeper. And so what you've said there, Christ brought the Lord's Prayer. And in this Lord's Prayer is like I'm going to use this way of living or way of life, which we are to practice and grow from that. So, and that in a way, although most people wouldn't have recognized it, that this is what it is, this is like the message of Christ, it's in that Lord's Prayer, they might have thought, oh, it's the practices and that they're more familiar with, let's say, charity or whatever it is. But in a way, what you're pointing to, Gregory, is that it's the message you have to grasp first, and then all these other things you build on from there. So, and again, how you said it, Gregory, it's like this is the spiritual message rather than a religious message, and which is like aimed at a specific group of people. It's really for everyone. So yes, so I think we are shifting people from what they might be thinking, how they used to maybe up to thinking up to this point, where oh, this is what we have been told, this is what he is, or this is what he was brought, and we're pointing to something new.
What I was really referring to is that the gifts that Christ brought does not evolve. It remains the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Whereas the human personality have to evolve to understand the richness, the benefits of that which he brought. Because the teaching which he brought, encapsulated in the Lord's Prayer, does not evolve, remains the same. It means that teaching is eternal, applies to every human personality. And that being the case, it is the human personality that has to mature, in quotes, evolve, to grasp the depth of that knowledge, which richness supports, guides, and helps the human spirit to mature as expected by creation, of which he himself is a part.
Thank you for that clarification and expansion, Gregory. And what it came into my head there was one of the sayings of Jesus is, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." And this, Jesus came as a gift, like a gift of love. So he really, let's say, brought, not that there was no love before, but it's like he highlighted the importance of love as a eternal. You mentioned this eternal, you could say eternal values, and yes, it doesn't matter. It applies every day, before and after he came. So but so the message is always relevant. That's the big point there. So I want to ask about that actually. This love, Gregory, is it? I'm just trying to frame the question on this, how to put it there. So, Gregory, is Christmas also like bringing humanity together out of love, reminding themselves, because they say it's supposed to be a season of goodwill to all men, and so is that an expression? Is that something, some value that we have to, like you say, evolve into?
It is said goodwill to all men, not only is basically goodwill to mankind, men and women, and also nature. The key thing that one might take away in these circumstances is that there is to be a firm, good volition. Firm in the sense that it should always be there. Once you have the firm, good volition, which is basically goodwill, in all naturalness, in accordance with the law of similar species or the law of similar types, there will be an accumulation. That means there will be an attraction of those who have similar goodwill. Maybe that is what is now expressed, that people come together to celebrate, because people tend to accumulate. And that which is similar is the firm goodwill that the human spirit is able to have. So that forms an attraction.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio 1. We're broadcasting on this website called Bless Radio 1, number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and in the search box, type in Bless Radio 1, the number 1, and then space live stream. And the show is called Spiritual Discussion Program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time on Tuesday evening. And tonight's show, we are celebrating, the topic is called Celebrating Christmas. And you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushi. And if you're interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. That's grailmessage.com. Gregory, I just want to go to the event of the birth of Christ for a moment. And in the story, we are told is Mary and Joseph are traveling to Bethlehem, and they're looking for an inn to stay, and they can't find any. It's all full up. And I think it was the time of a census, so everybody was having to come to their hometown. And so they were traveling there. And unfortunately, all the places were full, and then they had to stop at a stable, find it. Well, that's what Joseph was able to find, a stable where he could, just stay. Well, his wife was pregnant, of course, and it was the only thing he could find in that moment. And then we are told, Gregory, there also that 3 kings from the east were led there, and also some shepherds. So, and Christ was born in this stable there. So what I'm saying, Gregory, there, somehow the shepherds and these 3 kings of the east seem to be aware about what was happening in the Christ's birth. And I just want to understand what was the role of this? How could they be told? How would they know about that? This happening, basically, and because Joseph and Mary didn't seem to know about it themselves.
For those who were able to open themselves spiritually, then that information was passed on to them. It's as if they were attracted to this particular gift, to creation, also the earth. So the 3 kings were not, didn't know of these things materially. First, in their intuitions, they were very well guided. Those other people around who also perceive these spiritual manifestations physically, first, in their intuitions, their spiritual eyes or their ethereal eyes were open. Only then were they able to come towards that point where Christ was born. And that is why when their inner eyes were open and they saw the joyous upheaval, they themselves, having not experienced this in the past, were afraid. And the angels had to reassure them, be not afraid. So that's how they were able to come to that neighborhood, that place where Christ was born. And for all those who were in that particular neighborhood, those who were attracted, very few of them, their inner eyes were open, where they were able to behold the glory at that particular moment.
Thank you for that answer. And you mentioned the angels there. Um, I want to understand, Gregory, were the angels there as part of the announcement to mankind, or were they accompanying Jesus, like protecting him and so on? So, because it always seems the angels, it's like whenever God has to declare something to mankind, on angels, not always, but many times the angels are involved in that uh, process. So were they just there to make the announcement to the mankind, or were they also surrounding Jesus in, to mark that event?
I thought the answer is in your question. Both. For
Okay.
they escorted the Son of the Almighty to that point where he is to be born. And this spiritual event also manifested physically. Those whose eyes were open internally, or whose inner eyes were open, were the only ones who were able to perceive it at that time. And those basically were those in the nearest neighborhood who were open, and the so-called three wise kings who came to that particular place. For they were well guided. Otherwise, there was no way they could find the gifts which had been bequeathed to the earth.
Thank you for that. And you reminded me, Gregory, there was also this Star of Bethlehem, as it's called, possibly a comet, which was, shining above the stable where Jesus was born, and that was also guiding the three kings and the shepherd to that point. So, just to understand, this star, like a heavenly or a comet, as some people sometimes think of it, um, is that what I want to get from that is, was that a one-off thing for Christ, Gregory, that happened? Um, yeah,
It
yeah.
was specific to Christ himself, as he himself was, is, and will ever remain the Son of the Almighty. And on his journey for an incarnation, we had many other personalities, like you mentioned, the angels, who accompanied him. On a physical level, one had the comet. That comet was specific, or is specific, for towards the sons of the light, or towards the sons of the Almighty. And Christ being the Son of the Almighty, the living, divine personification of love being made manifest on earth. All these signs only point that here he is.
Thank you for that. And I also remember in the Bible it talks about King Herod, who was the king at that time, and he got to know about the birth of Jesus, and uh, he was told he's going to be the king of the Jews, and he was fearing that maybe he will lose his power or something like that, and so he asked. I think he came across those three kings and asked for them to tell him about this event, and so he can basically kill Jesus. I don't think he gave that away to the kings, though, the three kings, but uh, he he was quite concerned, let's say, at the birth of Jesus being the king of the kings, or king of the Jews, as it is referred to in that time. Um, so my question on that is, how, you know, was there a knowledge, Gregory, of this happening, like a prophecy of Jesus to be born? Because, you know, the Jews never, as we know, they didn't recognize Jesus. Uh, Although he was prophesied as a king of the Jews, they didn't recognize him. So what was the, I'm trying to frame this question again, how to say this. Um, when this birth was happening, Gregory, was that prophecy well known to the people, or it was like only a few?
As you will have in most scenarios, whatever prophecy, whatever sayings, whatever expressions are put forward, only very few strive to understand aright what the meaning of these expressions are. And as you will also find, the expression Jew specifically does not mean a group of people tied to one place, but generally referring to as a collection of individuals who are striving towards spiritual maturity. That being the case, the birth of Christ was to take off from that place and guide these individuals, whether the individuals were in the containment of Israel or not. However, in most cases, the interpretation is always that, oh, this one is our own, this one is not our own. When the Ten Commandments were given, it wasn't given in such a way that only one person will hold on to it. Whatever has been passed on to you, you are supposed to make use of it and let others know. That means you pass it to others. In such a way, you will find, because you have made use of it and pass it to others, more will be added such that you will continue to mature. That is the way of creation. So when Christ is now referred to as, in quotes, King of the Jews, the saying is correct. However, the experiencing or the attitude is completely wrong. For whatever stage of maturity any personality is, were he or her able to make use of the teachings of Christ, from that state of maturity, it can go to the highest state of maturity, which will, in reciprocal action, draw the human personality closer to its origin as a self-conscious human spirit. It will draw it closer to paradise. That is the sense. In drawing the human spirit closer to paradise, he himself will come to recognize the Christ spirit. That is what is meant, or what was supposed to be meant by the king of the Jews. For he himself was the personification of divine love that have manifested here physically on earth. But these expressions are not understood properly, and they tie to little tribes here and there. And then they proceed from that premise. And then they start fighting other people, shooting, and they want to be preserved because they have a specific name.
Yes, thank you for that, Gregory, because I would like to read something from the Bible, just following from what you've said. It is from John chapter 8, verse 12 to the end of the chapter. And this is titled Jesus, the light of the world. And this happened on the Mount of Olives with the Pharisees. There was something preceding this point, but I'm going to start, which I would say is not so relevant to what we're discussing tonight. But so I'm going to read from this point on, where Jesus is called here the light of the world. So here I'll start there. This is John chapter 8, verse 12. Jesus spoke to the Pharisees again. I am the light of the world, he said. Whoever follows me will have the light of life and will never walk in darkness. The Pharisees said to him, now you are testifying on your own behalf. What you say proves nothing. No, Jesus answered. Even though I do testify on my own behalf, what I say is true, because I know where I come from and where I'm going. You do not know where I come from and where I'm going. You make judgments in a purely human way. I pass judgment on no one. But if I were to do so, my judgment would be true, because I am not alone in this. The Father who sent me is with me. It is written in your law that when two witnesses agree, what they say is true. I testify on my own behalf, and the Father who sent me also testifies on my behalf. Where is your Father? They asked him. You know neither me nor my Father, Jesus answered. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. Jesus said all this as he taught in the temple, in the room where the offering boxes were placed, and no one arrested him because his hour had not come. I'm just going to continue, Gregory. There's another section here, and it's titled, You Cannot Go Where I'm Going. Again, Jesus said to them, I will go away. You will look for me, but you will die in your sins. You cannot go where I am going. So the Jewish authorities said, he says that we cannot go where he's going. Does this mean that he will kill himself? Jesus answered, You belong to this world, here below, but I come from above. You are from this world, but I am not from this world. That is why I told you that you will die in your sins, and you will die in your sins if you do not believe that I am who I am. Who are you? They asked him. Jesus answered, What I have told you from the very beginning. I have much to say about you, much to condemn you for. The one who sent me, however, is truthful, and I tell the world only what I have heard from him. They did not understand that Jesus was talking to them about the Father. So he said to them, when you lift up the Son of Man, you will know that I am who I am. And then you will know that I do nothing on my own authority, but I say only what the Father has instructed me to say. And he who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, because I always do what pleases him. Many who heard Jesus say these things believed in him. I'm going to continue, Gregory, because I feel this is, although it's a bit long, it sort of gives a good story. It makes a story that I would like to share with people. So it says, so Jesus said to those who believed in him, if you obey my teaching, you are really my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We are the descendants of Abraham, they answered, and we have never been anybody's slaves. What do you mean by saying that you will be free? Jesus said to them, I'm telling you the truth. Everyone who sins is a slave of sin. A slave does not belong to a family permanently, but a son belongs there forever. If the son sets you free, then you will be really free. I know you are Abraham's descendants, but you are trying to kill me because you will not accept my teaching. I talk about what my Father has shown me, do what your but you do what your father has told you. They answered him, our father is Abraham. If you really were Abraham's children, Jesus replied, you would do the same things that he did. All I have ever done is to tell you the truth I heard from God. Yet you are trying to kill me. Abraham did nothing like this. You are doing what your father did. God himself is the only father we have, they answered, and we are his true sons. Jesus said to them, if God really were your father, you would love me, because I came from God and now I am here. I did not come on my own authority, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to listen to my message. You are the children of your father, the devil, and you want to follow your father's desires. From the very beginning, he was a murderer and has never been on the side of the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he is only doing what is natural to him, because he is a liar and the father of all lies. But I tell the truth, and that is why you do not believe me. Which one of you can prove that I'm guilty of sin? If I tell the truth, then why do you not believe me? He who comes from God listens to God's words. You, however, are not from God, and that is why you will not listen. I'm going to stop there, Gregory. It's quite a lengthy um, um, chapter, but I wanted to paint a picture there. You can see this picture, Gregory, that the Pharisees are claiming one thing and Jesus is claiming another thing, but it looks like Jesus' message is not getting through to these um, Pharisees. And I want to ask Gregory, what is the? I mean, obviously, we have the benefit of hindsight. We have, let's say, read the Bible, let's say, or have been Christian or familiar with what Jesus, was and came, let's say. But how was it that people are finding it very difficult to accept Jesus?
Because they never really reflected on the teachings of Jesus. Were they able to reflect a bit deeper into it, then they will come to a different conclusion. So what you then have is, because of their self made limitations, they refuse to move from their positions. They only considered that which they could see physically and lay hold on a position where they are not. They claim on their parentage that of Abraham, but by their activities, they have made themselves slaves of their personal intellect. They are unable to interpret things using their intuition. Where they had they used their intuition to examine the words or the teachings of Christ, then their inner eyes would have opened a bit gradually until they mature to that point where they will find that the expressions that Christ used were universal, that those expressions could not change, and that they themselves had to mature to it. But that was too much for many, for they had to either refine themselves in order to understand or refuse to refine themselves and consider that their neighbors is only basically maybe limited to their physical father or mother or brother. They cannot see further than that. And that is why they will throw stones at others. That's why they will stone the women. That's why they will discriminate and all sorts of things.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I also can see you use the word intuition. That is what they're not using, and we need to use the intuition. And also, like you gave the example of the word father, how they interpret the word father. They take it all very literally on an earthly level, and not seeing when Jesus says my father, he's not obviously talking about his earthly father, and they just can't seem to grasp anything beyond the earthly. It seems, and it's like they're just not ready to hear something like that. Okay, so now I want to ask. I'm going to. I know we talked about this earlier on. Celebrating Christmas is our topic tonight, listeners. Just want to go into some examples of that. So, Gregory, children do nativity plays, and as a way to relating to the story of the birth of Christ. Is that? I was just thinking, are children sort of? Is it good for children to know this story at this stage, or should they find out about, let's say, Christ's birth and its relevance when they're much older? Because, in a sense, it might be they will take it more of a fun event rather than let's say, the true story of what it represents. So I just wanted to ask about that. Is nativity as a good for children?
Depending on the maturity of the children, just as you will start teaching a child to understand the language that it intends to use in communications at a tender age, so one may classify or categorize the nativity play as a beginning, as a pointer to the personality of Christ. Before too long, when maturity sets in, they already have a basis. They already can see a personality whose nature is that of pure love. And because this little place has prepared the way, they, through personal experiencing, may come to understand that which Christ brought.
Thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio 1. This is the spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday evenings in UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you're interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight, being Christmas, the topic we're discussing is celebrating Christmas. And you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00 44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I just want to go into more of the traditions of Christmas, because they all have like a picture, some representation of something. So, one of the traditions we have is the Christmas tree, and people go put gifts under the Christmas tree. And so is there any, what is the meaning behind that, having given the gifts a Christmas tree, under the Christmas tree?
There are many interpretations as to what is meant by these Christmas trees. But the essence, one should never forget, is that of the personality of Christ. Christ himself as a divine gift to creation, to ensure that the possibility of man's maturity on earth continues to the extent that it's able to return to its origin as a self-conscious personality. The expression itself, gift, says it all. In a gift that a person receives lies joy. That joy is expressed in different forms. In accordance with the laws of creation, that whoever receives a gift must make use of it and pass it on to others. Passing it on to others, now due to his or her personal maturity, is able, even if in form of a good advice that will cheer up a neighbor, that could help a neighbor. That is a gift. A gift, when viewed properly, each second is a gift. Each hour is a gift. Each day is a gift. Each month is a gift. Each year is a gift. A gift, in a sense, an opportunity for one to mature. That space is a space of time is then granted, and the possibility of maturity continues. These are gifts. So, with the right perception, with the right conception, each personality should strive to sort of put themselves in a position where they are able to do that which is also a gift to others, not only for one day, but continuously in all their activities. That is the right gift which is mentioned.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, you're pointing to, like you say, Christmas. We think of it as a, well, let's say celebrated over 1 month, uh, and so that time, Christmas time or Christmas tide, as some people say, you're let's say behaving kindly and lovingly to people around you in that month. But of course, that's not really what it's about. It's meant for the whole life, and that's just it can't be just for that 1 month or that little period that we are celebrating. It has to be the whole. Let's say the celebration is a all life celebration, um, and that's what everybody, let's say, has to come to recognize that. um, I'm just thinking, Gregory, just going back to the current situation with the pandemic, there's rising, you could say a raging uh, rise in the coronavirus. It's a new strain in the UK that we have that is, going spreading faster now. And as you're aware, we have had very tight restrictions put in just in a few days ago. With now they're saying um, basically no getting together with people except only Christmas Day now. And it's like most people say, how Christmas is spoiled. That's, or let's say many people thinking this way, and even I would call it a comical suggestion. Oh, you can celebrate it later, maybe in Easter time, something like this. So, what I want to say, Gregory, I know what we have said up to now. This is a spiritual event that we are celebrating, but somehow we always have to remember that the world we are living in, the real world that we are in, when this coronavirus circumstance is going on, with it seems people want a social side to it as well. So many people, let's say, feeling wanting to a family to come together. There's also people who feel lonely at this time, and Christmas is like somehow seems to be the time when people come together. Um, how can the focus, Gregory, be put that it is, so the focus is not on the earthly and the current sort of situation of what we are going through?
As a matter of fact, which one has stressed earlier, in accordance with the laws of creation, when Christmas is considered, it must be considered first and foremost as a spiritual occurrence, a spiritual happening. And when it is to be celebrated joyfully as a spiritual happening, it must be done by each and everyone who wishes to participate in it. It has to be done personally. In some occasions, having celebrated these things personally, one may then come together with others. That is where the social aspect comes in. As long as it is done spiritually, there is energy, there is heat generated. This done through one's intuition is able to impact spiritually on others. That is what counts. Whether people come together socially and discuss and express their joy is a different thing. What had happened in the past, for many who came together, the spiritual significance had been excluded, has been diminished, has been forgotten. So in this time of so-called COVID, the opportunity avails itself for many to reflect spiritually on the times, on the gifts which Christmas indicates. So, social or not social, a true Christmas celebration must be that of the Spirit.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I'm just thinking that the spiritual celebration and the recognition of that, I think is still far for many people, and because it's, I mean, we already answered it, but they have just not focused on that. So I'm thinking, Gregory, is it for the mass of humanity, are they capable, because you said you need to use your intuition there, are they capable of experiencing this spiritual happening, or are they just like disconnected completely and it's not really possible for them?
Whoever is able to open himself to the challenges at a particular time can awaken of himself and able to perceive the goodness of that time. So if the mass of the people through joy are able to awaken of themselves to the significance of a happening, so be it. If, on the other hand, true sorrow, which wraps on their souls, they are able to awaken to the significance of this particular happening, that is also welcome, because these personalities awaken to that which remains at all times. If, however, during these times of sorrow or challenges, they are unable to awaken for themselves, it only means they have shut the door. Which door is to permit one's intuition to come to the fore. Those ones cannot be helped.
And just the other traditions, I just want to sort of go through them. You know, there's singing, carol singing, and music, and well, the other ones are more, let's say, decoration. So I'm not sure I want to go into them too much about, like we talked about Christmas trees and then putting lights on them and so on, and wreaths on the door and so on, and holly and so on. So what I want to focus more on, Gregory, let's say you could call it the more spiritual aspect, when the carol singing with the music and so on. People join in to those, Gregory, almost, let's say, I would say almost in a habitual way, rather than, it's like, oh, this is a historic event and this is like a happy time, and they join in that way. Is that also, would you consider that a spiritual celebration, even if you don't really recognize the deeper happening?
Any spiritual celebration, which is in most cases, in all cases, must be that of a joyful one, will entail the personality opening up itself, even if for a fraction of a second. If there is no opening up, then how is one able to benefit? Most of the time you find that which is very joyful, when you are joyful, it doesn't seem to last long, even if for an hour or two or even a day. It is when you are in sorrow that drags on, even if it's for a few seconds. Consider a person going to see the dentist where they have to pull their teeth. It may just be for half a minute, but it looks like an eternity. Whereas in other cases where you have real joy, you will find it vanishes. So what is being stressed here is that the personality, one way or the other, must open up, even for a fraction of a second. You find this with children who, in their trust, open their hearts, and it is filled with joy, not even considering what the challenges are. There are many who are physically infirmed, some may be in the hospital, but for a fraction of time, they are able to express themselves in joy. That is also helpful.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And I'm also thinking about the many volunteers who come together to help, let's say, the homeless or other people. I know in TV there's a campaign for people who are lonely, to people to call on them, and it's like there's a joy there of people coming together and helping, although they're not specifically thinking of Christ, but it's the Christmas time that's bringing them out to come forward. You know, so again, Gregory, is that a good sort of how can I say, joyous practice? Like in a way, they're not celebrating Christ, recognizing Christ, but maybe they are joining in with what Christ's message is.
Well, you stressed it. By their activities, they acknowledge the personality of Christ and following the path which he has indicated. Which path refers to loving one's neighbor as oneself. So many a thing viewed from the outside is very different, whereas viewed from inside, views through one's intuition, is in accordance with the laws of creation that Christ has always discussed. So they fulfill the will of his Father. That is what Christ always mentioned.
Thank you for that. And Gregory, I was reading recently a lecture in the Grail message called Childlikeness, and you've mentioned it about children just now. In that lecture, it was saying that to celebrate this Christmas festival, one must be childlike. So can you please tell us what is it that the children have, and what is childlikeness that that it will allow us to celebrate Christmas?
When one observes the child with the twinkle in their eye, full of expectations sometimes of physical gifts, above all, not only of physical gifts, but also of spiritual gifts. The child looks forward in celebration in such a way because he doesn't consider his guilt, or it pushes away guilt. Such a child, one may refer to, is positive, filled with expectation. In fact, one may say such a child is pure, as if some purity exudes from the child. In such a way, the child is not considering the challenges that are there, but it opens itself to the joys which are to come. That is the way that the expectations of Christmas should be. Become like little children.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Just to understand, I must apologize. I wasn't listening to everything what you said. That childlikeness, is that only applicable for children, or is also applicable to the adults?
That childlikeness also is applicable to the so-called adults.
Okay, and so is there because an adult can't be a child in terms of obviously physically, so it's like an attitude, isn't it? It's like the way their children are, which, like you say, I know you've talked about it, that if there's a challenge, they don't look at it as a challenge, they just go forward. They're not stuck, oh, this is so hard, I'm not going to do it. They're more just open and just ready basically to whatever it is they have to do, they just get on with it. So I'm trying to think, so is it like there's a joy? I mean, in a way, we were answering the question as soon as I open my mouth. So yeah, it's like so what is it about the children, Gregory, that it somehow disappears in the adult, that they are not able to continue as a child? The qualities that the children have, how come it disappears when you become an adult?
It is the quality of purity. The child, when it expresses itself in simple terms, unadulterated. It is the adult that brings all sort of complexities when he's asking for something. The adult will ask for so many things, even if it's going to destroy him. The child will ask for one simple gift. It is the attitude, the simplicity, which simplicity is expressed in a form of purity, as if something pure, not dirty, all right, nothing to hold it down. For it is the heavy thoughts that you find in the adults that make things look almost impossible. Whereas the child, in their simplicity, in their childlikeness, exudes that inner purity which many have within themselves. The adults have lost that. For their ways of reflections are very complicated. First, they find the impossibilities before they think of anything possible. First, they dissect with their intellect, with their earthly intellect. The child does not do that. Whatever experiences come its way, it takes it in, all right, and learns from it and moves forward. Consider very carefully a child learning to walk. Takes the first steps, falls, continues. It keeps falling and rising until it comes to a time where it fears no more. Consider it for an adult. The first time it falls, it does all sort of complex calculations and wouldn't move for a very long time. Of these two, who exhibits simplicity and purity? So what one is referring to when it is said be childlike, it means look at how simple a child behaves when it needs to attain to a specific goal. Simplicity comes in, many other things come in, but not complicated. For a better understanding of this, one will refer to the lecture Childlikeness as one we find in the Walk in the Light of Truth, the Grail message. There, all will be revealed.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And dear listeners, I want to let you know, if you want to know about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And you're listening to blessradio1.com. It's the website, blessradio1.com. And we're also broadcasting on YouTube, which is go to youtube.com and then in the search box type in Bless Radio 1, the number 1, and then put a space and put live stream. That's to listen to the live show. And our show is always recorded. You can listen to the recording the next day. That is, again, go to YouTube, youtube.com, and then in the search box type in Bless Radio 1, the number 1, Bless Radio 1, then space Grail message, and then space the topic of the show. The topic of the show for tonight is celebrating Christmas. So if you want to join in with any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, you know this Christmas Day that we say is Christmas Day, it's sort of, let's say, been decided that it is on the 25th of December, but pretty much everybody's sure that is not the real day, but we decided to, or let's say it was decided to celebrate on that day. And in my research, I found out that it was thought by those Christians at the time that it should coincide with the winter solstice in the Roman calendar. I know it's supposed to be 21st December is the actual winter solstice day, but they managed to think of it at that time it's 25th of December in that calendar. So, and And in fact, yesterday was the 21st of. No, before I go to that, actually, that's another question I would like to ask later, and then another point. Um, so some people, Gregory, say, oh, we shouldn't celebrate really because we don't know the real date uh, about Christmas. And I just want to ask that point: is that really right? That just because we don't know the real date, we shouldn't celebrate this Christmas?
A gift remains a gift. That is a fact. In order to remember that gift and what it does for any personality, it's common sense to continue to remind oneself within the period of a year. For all personalities on earth must be born within 1 year. That means they have a birth date. The date which has been chosen most likely is nearest to the actual day that Jesus himself was born. That is his incarnation. More as to the actual date of this particular happening, many who are bold enough may examine the work in the light of truth, Grail message, first to find the significance of his birth and hopefully subsequently the actual date. It is the significance that really counts. It is the gift which was bequeathed to the earth that counts.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've just received a question from a listener. It looks like he's just responding to the question I just asked. Um, um, he's saying that um, G, Jesus was born in December then. Surely it should have been cold and snowy, right? How come it wasn't? And how should we, as Christians, believers, respond to that? So I'm not sure quite what the point of that question is, but I'll just repeat it, Gregory. It says, Jesus was born in December then. Surely it should have been cold and snowy, right? How was it not? And how should we Christians, believers, respond to that?
It must be remembered that there was a place, or his place of incarnation, physical incarnation, is Bethlehem. Now, one should ask, is it always cold and snowy in Bethlehem in December? There are times where it is cold and subsequently snowy. There are times it is cold and not snowy at all. But the conditions were stated, and it was based on that the so-called three wise kings came and were able to find him. Were it that snowy, then many of those who accompanied or who were there at the time of his birth would have been wearing different materials. That did not come through biblical stories. What is clear that it was in the night. Therefore, because one is a Christian, one should continue to examine deeper and deeper it is possible to just give expressions unless the personality is prepared to examine. Then it becomes very difficult. As you rightly know, these questions are requests, which are welcomed. But for one who is making a request, he or she is on a quest. Being on a quest means you have to exert your inner abilities to understand. The best one may suggest is to examine this work critically, thoroughly. This work which we keep mentioning, this work in the light of truth, the Grail message. There, help is granted to that person who is on quest to find the truth, to recognize the light. That is why intuitively that personality made a request. There is much more there that many don't understand. But what one may stress now, first, that he, Jesus, was given birth to first at night. And truly, it was in this particular month of December. As to the actual day, the personality on quest need to exert themselves, and truly, he or she who seeks will find.
Thank you. Thank you, Gregory. Now, yesterday, Gregory, was 21st of December, and something special happened. It is the 21st of December is the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year. Also, there was, let's say, the planet Saturn and Jupiter became very close together on their orbit, which could be seen from this Earth. And apparently, very close together at the sunset time, you could see this, but of course we had clouded in UK, so we couldn't really see that. And apparently the last time that happened was 800 years ago, when Jupiter and Saturn became that close. And in my research, again from Wikipedia, well, this is only a conjecture. Nobody, or let's say, yeah, nobody can say 100% about it's true or not. That's exactly happened at the time of Christ. But apparently also, basically Saturn and Jupiter were close together then, apparently, and they were in Pisces, in the Pisces constellation. They were seen there. So my question is, Gregory, is there any significance with this happening of Saturn and Jupiter coming together very close in their orbits at this time?
In the weavings of creation, these events are always significant. However, as to the specific significance, one cannot say. As at the time when Christ was born, it was a comet. At this particular time, this specific event are two massive bodies. They are not comets. So one may give it a different importance. However, what one stresses, in accordance with the laws of creation, we have that bodies which we call planets, they revolve, and the regularities will be such that it can be calculated when they will come closest together or when they will be farthest away. However, one should only mention these are what one sees physically. There are all these planets have their counterparts ethereally, and there are also planets not only in the non-physical, nearest non-physical, there are also planets ethereally and planets even spiritually. Some do not have direct effects on what we are able to perceive with our five senses, or with also instruments through which we can view these things. So there are so many things happening. The only way, and one stresses, the only way one is able to understand the activities in creation is to use the laws through which these activities came into existence to understand them. To be able to use these laws, one must first acquaint oneself with the operations in these laws, in every happening in nature we refer to as the laws of nature. In creation, we refer to them as the laws of creation. In divine happenings, we also refer to them as divine laws. It is the task of the human spirit, through his or her intuition and through observations, physically using the intellect that he also has, to put all these things together in order to understand aright the weavings of creation. That is the task of the individual. That is the task of man. Only when it understands to a large extent of the weavings of creation, of the weavings of nature, only then can it cooperate such that it can bring benefit to it. When it gets to that stage that it understands these laws, whatever it has burdened itself with is now able to unburden himself. That is redemption. That is the kind that Christ himself brought. At the same time, whatever quagmire it has sunk into, using the teachings of Christ, which are in consonance with the laws of creation, is able also to save itself. It now knows how it needs to weave its parts in order to become self-conscious, self-aware of all the processes that it needs to have in order first to be of benefit to itself, to be of benefit to its neighbor, and to be of benefit to creation as a whole.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've got another question from another listener now. They're saying, "Dear presenter, please can you describe the maturity that is needed to experience Christmas?" And I know, Gregory, you mentioned about you need to use intuition. So here the question is, "Dear presenter, please can you describe the maturity that is needed to experience Christmas?"
The maturity that is needed to experience Christmas is that of openness of one's intuition, such that that which took place spiritually at that time becomes self-evident to it. Whether that openness takes place in a fraction of a second or takes place in an hour or a day or a week, which openness can come up at any time. Sometimes you hear people say, every day is not Christmas. That is not true. It depends on the openness. There are many who open themselves through joy. There are others who open themselves only when they have gone through sorrow. Openness remains the same. At that point, you leave, it's as if the human spirit leaves all this earthly heaviness behind, and in a moment is able to sense the warmth, the togetherness, that which is spiritual, which transcends the earthly. It can happen anytime. However, it happens most times when one is full of expectations. That expectation of joy and the expectation of happiness.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've got a bit different question now. Christ spoke about his return, and yes, when shall we expect this? So Christ spoke about his return. When shall we expect this?
Hello?
Yes, yes. Did you hear me, Gregory?
Yes. Christ spoke about his return, and rightly so. And one already had expressed that to understand Christ aright, the need for one's intuition must be there to be able to recognize the time at which he himself said he would come. So for those who are able to use their intuition and are in deep fervor about this, they are able to have recognized that time when Christ said he will be around. To be able to come does not mean that he would come and have also appear in a physical body. So these things must be experienced spiritually. Experiencing it spiritually, the time, what Christ had mentioned, what will be happening around the time in which he himself is to come. If man is able to recognize those occurrences, then he or she is able to place the time in which Christ said he would come. But all this must first be recognized spiritually. Then all confusion about him will vanish.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Gregory. I just want to look at, Christmas is about love, and we have shared about that. And oh, apparently we are off air somehow. Hopefully we'll come back very quickly. Okay, we're back. We are back. So I'm glad about that. Yes, I said Christmas is about love, and I've talked about the people volunteering and you know, doing good things, let's say, and so celebrating from their own way in a spiritual way. Um, just want to know, Gregory, is there um, like somehow we can? I mean, you said this celebration should be a spiritual celebration. So should we, let's say, uh, when people go to church for the celebration in a church, um, is that also a spiritual event there, or is it supposed to go in nature? Because you said, we're supposed to sort of like tune in with the intuition. So, yeah, is that also possible to celebrate in like a church service?
For many, church service is what they are used to. For others, they could be at home and still open up to the experiences of the spirit. There are others who will prefer to go to the forest. Each personality should do that which will help in the opening of their personal intuition so they are able to perceive. There are others who listen to music and the music becomes so moving and they are able to perceive of the significance of the happening. It will be wrong to deny those who wish to get together in order to experience, just as it will be wrong to deny those who wish to go to the mountain or to go into the forest in order to experience. Each personality has its own peculiar way in which it can awaken its own intuition.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I want to now read something from the Grail message, which is going to direct people for the topic, which is tonight. Is called, the topic is celebrating Christmas. So I'm going to read now a lecture called, not the whole lecture, but first part of it is the lecture called Star of Bethlehem. Listeners, this is from the Grail message in the Light of Truth by Abrushim. The Star of Bethlehem. There shall now be light here on earth, as once it should have been when the star of promise shone radiantly above a stable in Bethlehem. But at that time only a few accepted the light, and those who listened to them very soon distorted and misrepresented it, as men on earth are apt to do. What they forgot, they tried to replace with ideas of their own, thereby creating only a confusion that nowadays is meant to pass as an inviolable truth. Out of alarm that everything will collapse if even the smallest pillar proves to be unsound, every ray of light that can bring recognition is resisted, defiled, and if there is no other way, at least ridiculed with a malice and cunning, which plainly indicates to clear thinking that it springs from fear. But clear thinking is only rarely to be found on earth. In spite of this, the light of true recognition must at last come over all mankind. The time has arrived when everything unhealthy invented by the human brain will be swept out of creation, so that it no longer suppresses the enlightenment that the truth wears a different aspect from the unsteady images which boastful conceit and commercialism, morbid imagination, and hypocrisy, in a craving for earthly power and earthly admiration, have created out of the sultry swamp of base narrow-mindedness. Accursed now be those who, through leading millions of people astray, have so enslaved them that today they no longer dare to open their eyes to the light, but blindly revile anything coming to their knowledge that sounds different from what they have hitherto heard, instead of at last listening attentively and examining inwardly to see whether the new does not come nearer to their understanding than what they have learned in the past. Their ears are stopped, and anxiously they see to it that no breath of fresh air penetrates to them. Actually, just out of laziness and fear that this fresh air, through the ensuing recovery, implies spiritual activity, demanding and enforcing self-exertion, in contrast to the present apparently comfortable spiritual slumber, which is followed by the heavy, permanent sleep, and thereby only gives a free hand to the cunning of the distorted, debased intellect. But it is of no avail to stop your ears against the new word, to shut your eyes lest the light dazzle and startle you. You will now be forcibly roused from this deplorable stupor. You have to stand shivering before the cold light that mercilessly strips you of all the false wrappings. Shivering because your spirit spark can no longer be kindled within you, and thus generate the warmth from within that will unite with the light. Indeed, it is all too easy for you to believe the unbelievable, for then you need not trouble to think and examine for yourselves, just because it cannot stand up to any test that is in accordance with the divine laws of nature. You have simply to believe, without questioning, the why or wherefore. You have to believe blindly, and this you imagine to be great. You who so conveniently imagine that you are particularly devout, simply raise yourselves above all doubts in this matter, and feel happy, secure, noble, pious, and sure of a place in heaven. However, you have not thereby raised yourself above all doubt, but only bypassed it in a cowardly way. You were too spiritually indolent to bestir yourselves, and preferred blind faith to a knowledge of natural happening in the law of God's will. Fictions devised by the human brain aided you in this, for the more absurd and incomprehensible the things you were supposed to believe, the easier it also became literally to believe in them, blindly, because in such matters it is quite impossible to do so otherwise. Knowledge and conviction must be eliminated then. Only the impossible demands blind, unreserved faith. For whatever is possible immediately stimulates independent thinking. Wherever there is truth, which is immediately characterized by naturalness and consistency, thinking and deep intuitive sensing automatically set in. This only ceases where it no longer finds anything natural, thus where truth does not exist. And it is only through deep intuitive sensing that anything can become conviction, which alone brings value to the human spirit. I'm going to stop there, listeners. Um, that is a section from the beginning of the lecture called The Star of Bethlehem from the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin. And if you are interested to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. That's www.grail, message, message.com. Gregory, anything you would like to say to the listeners to say goodbye? We've come to the end of our show for tonight.
Just wishing everybody a spiritually joyful Christmas season.
Thank you for that. And from me too, everyone, happy Christmas and a blessed Christmas celebration. We'll be back again next Tuesday, as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on blessradio1.com. All the best, everybody. God bless. Take care. Good night.